Hello. We are going to get started in about 5 minutes, but I always love to pop on whenever I can and rock and roll. For those of you that are trickling in, joining me, my early birds, I love an early bird. I always operate under the if you're not early, you're late. So you are my people. Can you just drop in the chat that you can hear me? That would be amazing. I usually use Zoom, but I wanted to do something different for many good reasons. I see some familiar names in the group here. Hello, Nancy and Judy. Hello, Amy and Terry. Let's see here. I see chat, but I don't see what the okay, cool. Pam and Marilyn can see me and hear me. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, we're going to get started in about 4 minutes, but I always like to just pop on, say hello. Where are you tuning in from? I'm so excited to have you here. I have been really enjoying talking about consistency, especially at this time of year. For some of you who are regular listeners to the podcast, these might be some topics you've heard about before, but the reality is kind of doesn't matter if we have heard of them before. What matters is if we live them out. Lorraine is here from Pennsylvania. We've got Teresa is here from Oregon. Pam is in Georgia. Heather is in Wisconsin. Joyce is in North Carolina. Lynette is in upstate New York. Love it. We've got Amy from Illinois. Cindy's from Virginia. This is so great. Ashley in Texas. Erin's in New Hampshire. You're not far, Erin. We've got Seattle, Wisconsin, Virginia. I am on Cape Cod, which, if you are not familiar with the East Coast, is part of Massachusetts. Maryland's also in Massachusetts. Sanders in Florida, some more East Coasters. Donna's here from Nova Scotia. I'm sure every time you say that, people are like, oh, I love Nova Scotia. It is beautiful. We've got Linda in the house from New Zealand, and Kristen is in Florida. Maureen is in South Carolina. Kim is from Oregon. Awesome, guys. We will get started. Hey, Judy in Michigan. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. Leslie is in the house from Richmond, but Molly's here from Minnesota. I always like to pop on whenever I can, a little bit early, and just chit chat, say hello. I'm Elizabeth. I'll more formally introduce myself in a few minutes. I have been really looking forward to this because the truth of the matter is our lives are better when we're consistent, and our lives really suffer when we are not consistent. So, Sandra says, I can hear you, but I had to press play. Yep, you do have to do that. Erin grew up on the Cape. Awesome. Upper Cape, Mid Cape, Down Cape. Where on Cape did you grow up? I am not from the Cape, but my husband is from the Cape, which is how I ended up here. Actually, it was because I didn't do my homework when I custom built a tiny house and I had no place to legally put it. And I was dating my now husband at the time, and he was like, oh, bring it to the Cape. I know people. And here I am. And here I will stay. Likely for a long time because my mom followed me here. Joyce says she lived in York Beach, Maine. Fantastic. We have a family home there, which is why my husband was wearing that sweatshirt in the reel that so many of you guys commented on. That was a funny one where I asked him silly questions. Upper Cape. Me too, Erin. I'm in the Upper Cape. Megan is here from New Hampshire. Fantastic. Guys, we're going to start in less than a minute. So grab yourself some water, a cup of tea, a pen. My plan is always to have a replay. But I do not always have a replay because technology sometimes, whatever. Michelle says, love that you can take a house and place it wherever you want, except you can't. I sort of thought that too, except most of the places don't let you just put a house wherever you want. So that's where I ended up with one option. All right. Rhonda is here from North Carolina. Love North Carolina. I lived there for about 15 years before I came home to New England from New England. So guys, I always want to get a recording and get a replay out there. But like I said, doesn't always unfold that way. So we shall see. But that is the plan. I do hope to get you guys all this information to follow up. But let's go ahead and dive in because I have a lot that I want to cover. And the first thing is that I'm really glad you took the time to be here. And I think sometimes we're a little too hard on ourselves, and other times we're not hard enough on ourselves. But where I really wanted to start is that you could be doing anything right now. And there are people who emailed me and were like, oh, there's a football game on. Is there another time? And no knock on football. I love sports, but you could be doing a lot of different things. And so I just want to give you a lot of credit for being here. In fact, I'll share with you an industry statistic that I hate, but it is very real, is that typically less than 30% of people who register for an online training actually show up for it. So it is something that you should really pat yourself on the back for, that you didn't say, she'll probably send a replay. I'll check it out later. I'm not in the mood now that I was when I signed up for this. So no thanks. I'm not going to do it. I really want to commend you for being here, because that is a huge deal. Now, tonight we're going to talk about why consistency matters so much, aside from the obvious, right? I don't want to waste your time saying things that are super obvious that don't really move the needle, but there are some things that I think we don't understand about consistency that we overlook. And with a greater understanding of them, we are much more compelled to take the thing seriously that we said we would do, and to stop letting ourselves off the hook. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk very specifically about a few shifts we need to make in order to get more consistent. But the first thing that I really want to do is I want to help you understand that, like, this is a real part of my everyday life. This is not just me talking from like my little podcast perch about things I don't understand. This is me. This is my family. My mom is in this picture, and I didn't crop her out because I love her. But my husband is a cute guy in the white t-shirt. He's got a really big attitude, but a bigger heart, and he's really funny. His name is Chris. He is holding one of our twins. I don't know which one. And I am holding one of our other twins, and then our son Roman. So we have 2-year-old twins and a 3-year-old. Piper and Charlie are our twins. They are identical. We still confuse them all the time. And Roman is 3.5. We also have a daughter named Dagny. She was born in 2020, and she died unexpectedly. And so the last few years for me has been redefining and readjusting what consistency means. Not only did my daughter pass away very unexpectedly and traumatically in 2020, it happened the very week that the world shut down. So my whole business stopped. My whole life stopped. My whole world stopped. And Roman and Piper and Charlie weren't born yet. I found out I was pregnant with Roman about 6 months later. And when Roman was 8 or 9 months old, I found out I was spontaneously pregnant with identical twin girls. Thank you, Jesus. Greatest gift of my life. But when I was 21 weeks pregnant with the twins, I was rushed to Johns Hopkins for emergency surgery on the girls in utero. And we really weren't sure that the pregnancy would last and that the girls would survive. They were delivered under emergent conditions at 26 weeks, 26 plus-ish. And they were both in critical condition. And I was told on the day they were born that it didn't look like either one of them was going to live. And they spent a little over 3 months in the NICU. The first little bit of that, they were on life support for every one of their major organ systems. And I don't say that for you to pity me. They're beautiful and they're healthy and they're wonderful. And we're very, very grateful. But that consistency is something that ebbs and flows, when I think that a lot of times we just see certain seasons as reasons we can't be consistent. But what I want you to know is life is gonna life. And while I certainly hope you don't walk through some of the things that I have walked through, if we approach consistency in a way that we can only execute it when we're not too stressed, when we're not taking care of somebody, when there's not a crisis, we will not and cannot be consistent. And so I am all about, because I live this and I am passionate about this, I am all about pursuing consistency in a way that meets you where you're at, knowing that where you're at right now is not where you're going to stay. Where I was at when Dagny died is not where I stayed. Where I was at when the twins were in critical condition and I was spending hours in the car driving back and forth with a 15-month-old at home, where I was at then and what consistency looked like then is not what consistency looks like now. So we have to stop with these approaches that we're able and willing to do when we have time and when we have bandwidth and when we're not too stressed, but it all goes to hell in a handbasket as soon as life lifes. That's not going to work. That is truly the opposite of consistency. Now, my struggles and issues with consistency and needs for consistency did not start in 2020. But before I show you kind of where it really started for me and one of the harder seasons of my life, I just want to say that one of my fears when the twins were born, or really before that, when Dagny died in 2020, was that because having lost my only child, I no longer cared about my work or my life or my health. I thought that that might be what just let it all go. My finances, my business, my health, my weight, habits that I had fought for years. And that's really when this passion came for, hey, we're all going to have our moments in the trenches, and to differing degrees. Maybe yours is because this week your car broke down and your mom's going through a health crisis, or maybe it's because you're in a rough patch with your spouse, or maybe it's because you're going through some financial hardships, or maybe it's because you've been dealing with this weight struggle for so long that you just don't know if you should throw in the towel or try one more time. The degree of our life challenges varies and will continue to vary. But the need for consistency that meets us where we're at is something that we always need to pursue and address. Now, this was me almost at my heaviest, not quite at my heaviest, but here I was over 350 pounds, and I'm not 14 feet tall, because might make sense if I was 14 feet tall, but I'm 5'5". I was over 350 pounds, was wearing about a size 26. Pictures of me heavier than this just didn't survive. I deleted them all, grabbed the camera from whoever took it and forcefully deleted it. And for years, probably decades, what I wanted more than anything in the world was to lose weight. But I kept choosing approaches that I thought would get me results fastest without ever thinking, is it going to be something I can stick with? Because if you had said to me like, hey, Elizabeth, do you think you can stick with this? I would have said, it doesn't matter. I'll deal with that later. I'm going to do whatever tells me I'm going to lose weight the fastest. And I learned a lot of really difficult lessons from that failing approach for decades. But also when it finally shifted and I lost over 130 pounds, was before having kids. This is before starting Primal, or right around the time of Primal. When that started, we're 10 and a half years into business now. What I had to undo was all of the extreme approaches. And I'd have to choose that again in building my business. And I'd have to choose that again in getting out of debt. And I'd have to choose that again after having my daughter and losing my daughter, and then having my son, and then having my twins. We just cannot waste more time and energy with approaches that we are not willing to stick with. And that is going to not only look different for every person in here, it's going to look different in every single season of your life. Where you're willing to start is not where you stay. And a lot of times we are unwilling to start small because we think, oh my goodness, that couldn't possibly be enough. But where you start is not where you stay. Before we get into these 5 things that I really want you to embrace and dive into, I want to paint a different picture about inconsistency, because I think that at first glance, we consider the fact that consistency keeps us from achieving our goals, or inconsistency, keeps us from achieving our goals. So if we're inconsistent, we're not going to get out of debt the way we want to. If we're inconsistent, we're not going to build our business the way we want to. We're not going to improve our fitness or our health or lose the weight the way we want to. And so there's that cost, the cost of the constant longing and the constant pursuit and the constant try again, start over, try again, start over. But that weight of stress does more than keep us from our goals. How many of you can tell me in the chat, how many of you have been pursuing the same goal unsuccessfully for a year or more? Trying things and like doing well for a little while, but then falling off the wagon, you make a little progress, you undo the progress, and then you try something new and you start again. How many of you can relate to that cycle? And the reason that I ask that is because there is a cost. We got all the yeses pouring in. Kim saying yes, Stephanie saying yes, Heather, Amanda, Jane, Megan, Ashley says guilty. Pretty much everybody here is like, yeah, all my life. Here's the piece that I don't think we consider. When you go through life, with this low grade tension. All right, listen, don't miss this part. This is so, so key in shifting the way you think about the things you commit to doing. When you go through your days and you have this low grade tension, this should I or shouldn't I? What am I going to do today? I need to do better. I need to follow through. Today's the day. Crap, I messed up. I need you to understand that taxes your nervous system and your immune system and your endocrine system in a way that not only impacts your mental health, which you've probably experienced from whether it's depression or anxiety or just this low grade tension and frustration that impacts all your relationships. But when we carry with us this constant sense of shouldn't I, what am I going to do? I need to do better. Damn it, I dropped the ball again. It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts in terms of the impact that's having on your nervous system. And that truly, truly increases your risk of just about every chronic disease out there. Carrying this constant stress and pressure, it is so detrimental to your health. Now, we could make a case for 20 different reasons that rates of chronic disease and rates of mental health crises are at all-time highs. And yeah, certainly diet is a part of it, and lifestyle is a part of it, and screens are a part of it, and you name it, media. But our inconsistency is a huge part of it because we are low grade stressing ourselves to death. And for some of us, it's not low grade stress. It's more mid grade or high grade tension and anxiety and worry and pressure. It kills you. It absolutely takes years off of your life. And so from that perspective, it's no longer a question of like, oh, I'll start tomorrow. Oh, it's no big deal if I do that workout tomorrow that I said I would do today. Hey, it actually is a big deal because every day that you continue to put it off, you can no longer look at it just in terms of the impact it has on your results and your time frame of results. You now need to realize every day that I continue to carry that stress and that pressure and that unresolved longing that I have, I'm chipping away at my nervous system, my endocrine system, and my immune system. So consistency is about so much more than making progress towards your goal as you see it. It really is about reducing this constant stress and tension, reducing the constant tax on our nervous system and immune system and endocrine system, and improving our health, not only because we made progress towards our goal, but because of the released weight of carrying this constant pursuit that we never really attain. Now, I told you we were going to go through 5 things that we really need to shift and acknowledge and address in order to get consistent. Now, obviously, everybody understands that you need to know, what do you want? Right? Everybody can probably answer that here. If I said to you, what is it that you want? Why do you want to be consistent? The answers would pour in with things like, I want to lose weight. I want to get fit. I want to get out of debt. I want to take better care of my home. You know that. But here is where we really miss the mark in a powerful and profound way. Now, before I describe it, I want to ask you a question. How many of you would consider yourselves information junkies, where you are endlessly reading and learning and looking for like that next opinion, and you're constantly curious about what's this influencer saying is the best way to do it, and what does this book tell me to do, and maybe I should try that because I heard on a podcast that that was really the new best thing. How many of you would consider yourself attracted by like shiny thing syndrome, the next shiny thing? I know I have certainly, Joyce, Judy, a bunch of you guys are saying yes. Donna saying, yep. Amanda, Kim, Lynette. Okay. It's not because you're overexposing yourself to information. So often we say to ourselves, well, it's just because I learn more than I do, and I always want to be learning, and I always want more information. That's actually not what's going on. When you are endlessly distracted by the next shiny thing, and I need to learn this, and I want to try that, that's actually a symptom that you lack clarity on how you want to get there. Now, when I say to somebody, okay, cool, you know what you want to get out of debt, or you want to lose weight, or you want to start a business, how do you want to do it? I usually get one of two answers. Either I don't know or I don't care. I don't know what's going to work for me. That wasn't the question. Or I don't know what's going to be the most effective. That wasn't the question. Or I don't care. Whatever's going to work, whatever's going to get me there the fastest, that's what I want. And that was the primary reason for me of why I was always jumping from this plan to that plan to the next plan in my weight. Because if you had said to me, okay, Elizabeth, you want to lose weight. How do you want to lose weight? I would have said to you, I really don't care. I will do anything. I will amputate my legs if that's what it takes, right? Like whatever it is, you just tell me what's going to work. I'll do that. I don't care. And that was the biggest lie that I wasn't willing to see. And here's how I know it was a huge lie. Because I didn't stick with the programs, right? Any number of the different protocols, plans that I had tried before would have worked, but I didn't stick with them because it didn't reflect what I was willing to do at that time, right? So I remember this is my second marriage. My marriage to Chris is my second marriage. I was married before, and leading up to my very first wedding, I went on this super bananas crazy diet because, hey, when you're motivated for a wedding dress and wedding pictures, like you'll do anything. And it worked. Even though it was absolutely crazy, I lost a lot of weight really quickly. And then what happened? You already know. I gained it all back because it wasn't something that aligned with what I wanted for my day-to-day relationship with food. But I wouldn't have slowed down to really consider that because I was just so stubborn and wanted to know what was going to get there the fastest, even though that meant wasting a ton of time. Actually, just this evening, I posted something on my Instagram that was like, hey, if you want to move fast, go slow. A lot of times I work with clients who don't want to take the time to answer hard questions because they're like, can you just tell me what to do? No. If you want to go fast, you got to go slow. You got to take the time to do this work. Now, I love, if you listen to the podcast, you know this about me. I love to give examples that maybe aren't so emotionally loaded for us, like money and food and weight are often really emotionally loaded. I'm a business owner. And every single time I open my email inbox or my Facebook or my Instagram, somebody is like, hey, 2025, this is what you want to do if you need to grow your business. You need to be on this platform and you need to have this approach and you need a high ticket offer and you need this and you need that. And there were many years in my business where I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. Okay, yeah, I should try that. And it totally eroded any attempts at consistency because I was just jumping on the next trendy thing. Not because I had an information problem, because I had a clarity problem, which was also a clarity opportunity. What I have done since, not only with business, but with money and with food and with parenting and with marriage, I have a tremendous amount of clarity on how I want to reach my business goals. Let me explain. I shared with you guys at the start, I've got 3 little kids. I have 2 2-year-olds and a 3-year-old. And I work from home. My primary job is mom, but I'm also a business owner and I run a nonprofit. I do not want to work every night. I do not want to work on the weekends. I do not want my day to be so jam-packed with meetings and appointments and managing a team and this, that, and the other thing that I can't on a whim be like, hey, kids, it's a gorgeous day. We're going XYZ. And so knowing how I want my life to run and what I want my day-to-day as a business owner to look like, that means that 95%, if not more, of the options out there for ways to grow your business have zero appeal to me because they don't fit into the filter I've created. In the same way with food. It was very easy for me to not be distracted by 67,000 approaches for possible weight loss when I was trying to lose the weight that I gained with my twins, because I know what I am not willing to do over the long term. I know that I don't want to cut out big groups of food. I know that I don't want something that is extreme that would limit me if my kids say, Mama, have a bite. I don't want to feel like, oh gosh, I can't. That's wrong. I've cheated. I don't want to feel like if my husband says, let's go out to dinner, that I'm freaked out thinking about how am I going to make this work, or can I make this work, or does this mean that I need to give myself a day off from this approach? I took the time, and look, this is not something that you just automatically know right off the bat. I don't know, or I'm not sure, is where we start, not where we stop. And this is something that I spend a lot of time working through with my clients, because I don't think most people inherently know the answer. So if you're like, well, I'm not sure, that's exactly where we start, right? That is the starting line. That is not the finish line. Too many people check out because they don't immediately know the answer. And I think that's one of the big problems with the way that many of us grew up in the school system, that we believe that the goal is to find the right answer that we're sure is the right answer as fast as possible. And that's actually not the goal. The goal is to work from I don't know and start to explore and brainstorm and learn from experimentation, not, oh crap, I did something wrong because I don't know the answer right off the top of my head. It's not enough to know what you want. You have to create a ton of clarity around how you want to get there. And the last thing I'll say about this before we move on from this particular point is that this changes over time. So when I started my business, what I was willing to do and what I wanted to do and the kind of work-life balance that I had 10 and a half years ago was dramatically different from now, because at that point, I didn't have any kids and a lot of other variables were different. Now I'm older, I'm more experienced, I know how much money I need. I'm not just like randomly trying to make as much money as possible. What matters to me is that I'm here and I'm present with my kids. And the same thing is true with food. At 350 pounds, I was not willing and even able yet to make some of the changes to the way that I was eating, or how much I was eating, or where I was eating, or how often I was indulging, as I'm able and willing to make now, with many more years of experience and trial and error and consistency under my belt. One of the big issues that we fall into is we are not creating our own guidelines and standards and process. We're just jumping from somebody else's to the next somebody else's to the next somebody else's. And then we're like frustrated that somebody else's shoes don't fit. No, man, we need to take the time to not just try somebody else's prescription, but really truly create our own based on things like, what are your most compelling excuses? What are the things that get in the way most often for you? What are your needs and priorities and preferences? Maybe for you, it's not a big deal to take your kids out for ice cream once a month or enjoy a cocktail with your husband here or there. But we all have those different things. Now, this is a big one that a lot of people really don't approach in a way that reflects progress. I want you to consider approaching change with small steps instead of big commitments. Now, I love a big change. I love a huge overhaul. It usually feels good. It's exciting. There's a lot of momentum with it. But the problem is, it's very hard to make it stick, because either at some point you don't have that kind of time, or at some point you don't have the energy for the preparation that it takes, or at some point life's and you can't maintain that over the long haul. But we are very drawn to big commitments, and we tend to tell ourselves that small steps aren't enough. But I'll go back to the point that I made earlier, that is, where you start is not where you stay. Jen says, I'm such an all or nothing person, and that's why I tend to fail. Here's what I want you to think about. If I gave you a project, let's say this, Jen. Let's say I said to you, hey, Jen, I want you to take the lead on writing my next book. And I'm going to give you two options. I've either given you 3 phases of the project, or I've given you a 300-step checklist. Which one do you want? Chances are you want the 300-step checklist, because it's going to be broken down in pieces that are way more approachable, right? And so you're going to have a lot more confidence, and it's going to be much more clear what you need to do and not to do. Whereas when we approach something like I need to stop eating sugar. And we just out of the gate are like, all right, no more sugar. That's not one change. That's maybe 100 changes a day. And then we wonder why we do well for a few days and then the wheels fall off the bus. We're not actually making one big change. We're asking ourselves to simultaneously make 100 changes a day every day, or maybe it's 50 changes a day every day. But there's a really great visual, and you've heard me describe this on the podcast. I always say, hey, if you came over to my house, if you're Amanda, right, and you show up at my house and I've got, against my old Cape house, I've got 2 ladders and they're both 30 feet tall. But one of them only has 3 rungs, like the one here on the left, and the other one has 30 rungs and they're a lot closer together. Which one do you want to climb? Now, if you're not looking to the ladders and we're just having this conversation and I say 3 easy steps to achieve your goal, or I say 300 steps to achieve your goal, most people are going to choose 3 because intellectually, when it's just philosophical, 3 steps, I can take 3 steps faster than 300 steps. Not so fast. Not so fast. Because as you see here for this guy on the left, he can't even get to the first rung, and he's trying, he's jumping, he's going for it, he's reaching, but he doesn't have the strength or the stamina. And so he's working hard, but he's getting nowhere because intellectually he was like, oh yeah, three steps, that's way easier. I want that. We can move faster and more quickly with smaller steps that are closer together. And one thing that I hear a lot in terms of like an argument against small steps is, it's never going to be enough. As though you take the first step and you just stay there. No. You're over intellectualizing it again. That's not how it goes. Jen says, I've never thought of it that way. It's so powerful. It really, really is. The example that I love to give is when I was writing my first book, I was like, I have no idea how to write a book. Right? Do you start with like a summary? Do you start with an agent? Do you start with a book deal? Do you start with an outline? Do you start with a title? Like what? I don't even know what to do. And in that situation, a lot of us freeze in the same way that I need to lose 50 pounds or I need to lose 100 pounds or I need to pay off $100,000 in debt. Feels like this big, huge thing. And it's like, I'm paralyzed. I don't even know where to start. But if we break it down into the most tiny, manageable steps, not only can we move with more confidence, we can move with more speed. We can move with more speed. And here's the other thing. When you are trying to make really accessible small steps, it's less likely that things are going to get in the way, like I don't have time. I always say that the 2-minute workout I can do beats the 30-minute workout I don't have time for. I am a person who wants to grab the small wins. I love the movie Any Given Sunday. I'm a football fan. It's a movie with Al Pacino, and there's this locker room scene. Al Pacino's the football coach, and he's in the locker room with his guys, and he's like, look, I'm not even going to attempt an accent, but it's good. He's like, look, football is a game of inches, and the inches are all around us. And in our lives, guys, so many of us don't grab the inches because we're looking for a touchdown. And we think that any day or any choice where we don't get a touchdown, we've lost. Can you imagine a team that walks off the field because they didn't get a touchdown when they had their, when they had the ball? Like, your point is progress. Your point is forward progress. It doesn't matter if it's an inch or it's a yard or it's 10 yards. You want to make forward progress. But here we are considering ourselves a failure because we're trying to get a touchdown every day. It's a game of inches, and the inches are all around us. And the inches are things that are more accessible, so we don't need as much time. We don't need as much preparation, so it's not a big deal if we've had a stressful day. We can still get it done. And instead, a lot of us are taking on these bigger changes that we aren't willing or able or both to do when we're overtired or when we're overstressed or when we've worked late or our kids are sick, and that's just not going to work. One more visual on this one and we'll move on to the next point. I like this because it shows that when we're looking at this big, enormous thing, losing weight, getting fit, paying off debt, starting a business, we literally are like, I don't know if I should be focused on like writing down what I eat or focused on protein? Should I cut out an entire group of foods? Should I follow a meal plan? What should I do? You want to start a business. Okay, like, do I need a website? Or is that not a thing anymore? Should I have a business card? Do I need to start with the name of my business? Do I need an Instagram account? When we break things down into small steps, what we need to understand is there is no right place to start. Let me be clear. You can write a book and your first step be get the title. You can write a book and your first step was get an agent. You can write a book and your first step was outline what your book is about. You can write a book and your first step was writing chapter 1. You can start from anywhere and still get where you want to get. But if you are so paralyzed by the enormity of the task, or by telling yourself that something is too small to make a difference, or by telling yourself that you're not sure the right places to act, you're never going to get there. Small steps over big commitments. Now, this is one of my top 2 favorite things to talk about. All right. Many of my clients feel like rules are to be bumped up against. Like there's almost like this inner teenager, inner toddler that's like, if I say I can't have XYZ, watch me, I'll show you, I'm going for it. You can't stop me. And so anytime we attempt to make change, it's very common to feel like you're rebelling against that very change because you feel restricted, you feel deprived, and that gets in your head and it messes you up. And you start to say things like, I deserve it, or I'm too stressed, or I need a break, or this is extreme, right? I'm a word geek. If you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know this about me, big word geek. Before I studied nutrition, I was actually a Latin and Greek major, and Latin and Greek are kind of all about words. The word rule does not have its origins in any meaning of restriction or oppression or any type of like squelching or squandering. The word rule really comes from the Latin word for trellis. Now, why does that matter? I live on a hobby farm. We have goats and chickens and apple trees and pear trees and peach trees and cherry trees, everything, you name it. Anyway, it's a disaster, but someday it won't be. And so I've loved learning about gardening. And one of the things you learn when you dive into gardening is that a trellis optimizes and maximizes growth, right? So if you have something and you want to support its growth, you want to help it thrive, you might have it grow against a trellis. It's going to make it easier for it to grow and thrive. And that is actually what the word rule really refers to. It refers to some type of framework or structure or support that helps you thrive, that doesn't hold you down or limit you or deprive you or restrict you. But man, I love the idea of what do I need to put in place that will help me thrive, that will help me grow, that will help me grow faster, grow better, grow less encumbered, be less limited and restricted, not more limited and restricted, less. And one of the big problems that we run into is that we're winging it, man. We're winging it and we're just relying on discipline and willpower every day. And that is not going to fly. Not only is it freaking exhausting and it requires a lot more time and energy of us, but also we're kind of done with it faster because we believe that it has to be harder than it needs to be. But we are free to put structures in place for ourselves, for our kids, for our families, for our finances, for our business, that help us grow and thrive. In fact, right now in my business, as you guys know, I'm going through this launch phase. We rebuilt the consistency course. It's crazy exciting and so much work. And one of the questions I ask myself at the end of every day is, what do I need to put in place to make this more efficient or easier for next time, so that it's less of the like hustle, grind, go, 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 and it sets me up and my team up for success and thriving. And yet so many of us don't ask that question for things we do every day, whether that's working out or eating or managing our money or running our businesses. Okay, let me give you a very, very simple example of what I'm talking about here. When it comes to feeding my family, as you know, I've got 3 little kids. They eat like they're teenagers. It's wild, especially because my twins were 2 pounds. Now they eat like they're linebackers. It's bananas. And for months, I was like, every day, I got to make dinner again today. Like, oh, what are we eating? When am I going to get it done? What do I need to pull out of the freezer? Like, who's going to watch the kids? Because they'll literally climb out the windows while I'm prepping dinner. They're at that age. They just need a little extra supervision. And it doesn't need to be. In fact, I would argue it shouldn't be something that I'm having to figure out every single day. And so what works for us is that seasonally, we rotate through the same dinners. Every single week, I know what I'm buying at the grocery store. I know what we're having for dinner. Now, sometimes we have salmon on Mondays, and sometimes we have salmon on Thursdays, and sometimes we have steaks on Mondays, and sometimes it's steaks on Fridays. I don't have it locked into a day of the week because sometimes it's a function of like, are we home or is there a babysitter or whatever? But it's the same stuff. And I always make enough so that there's leftovers for lunch the next day. At a minimum, my husband and I, sometimes the kids have something different for lunch, but at a minimum, I know what we're doing for dinner and I know what we're doing for lunch the next day. And that very, very simple structure has made eating healthy and cooking for my family dramatically easier. We don't have to act like we figure it out fresh every week or every day. I also have the same thing for breakfast 95% of the time. And then I have certain singular one-off standards, like I work out before 10. Because what I found was I just had this standard of like, I'm going to strength train 4 times a week. And then every day I was like, okay, when am I working out? Am I going to do this first? Am I going to work out? Or I haven't worked out yet? Crap. Now I'm on with the kids. And so if I want to do it now, I've got to do it after I go to bed, after they go to bed. And like, that's a pain in the butt. So I've simplified this dramatically by just saying like, it doesn't matter if I work out at 6 in the morning or I work out at 9:30 in the morning, but I work out before 10. That has made me dramatically more consistent. And it's taken away this feeling of 4 days a week feeling like I have to freaking figure it out. That's just not efficient. And there is a structure that we can put in place that helps us thrive. In my business, I have a lot of structures, like Monday are client focused days, Tuesdays are podcast focused days. And sure, there's other things that I do, but that example of structure in my business makes things so much easier. Pam says, I really struggle with deciding meals. Take the struggle out of it, right? I don't personally, and everybody's different, I don't personally want to say Mondays is always this and Tuesdays is always this with regards to food. Because you know how it is. Like sometimes it's like, I'm not feeling pork loin today, right? I really am in the mood for a steak. But I like knowing that I buy the same things at the grocery store. So it doesn't matter if I go to the grocery or my husband goes to the grocery or we order things online. It's always the same stuff. My kids, same thing. They have got 2 breakfast options. They've got 2 or 3 lunch options, and dinner is the same. Now, as I said, we rotate seasonally. The meals we eat for dinner in the summer are not the same as the meals we're eating right now in the winter where we live. And then the other thing that I do, because even then I found that some days it was like, oh, when I have a webinar at night, it's really hard to carve out that time for dinner. So at least 2 days a week in the winter, I start my day by putting food in the crock pot, right? So tomorrow, for example, it's chicken soup. I'll start my day while I'm making the kids breakfast. I'll take the whole chicken, put it in the crock pot with water, with herbs, with salt, etc., and it's ready at dinner time. And it took me 10 minutes, and I do that 2 days a week. So that is one example, but I have systems for my money. I have systems for my health, for my business, for all of these different things. One thing that I did after recognizing that my husband and I sucked at date nights in 2024, real bad, big old flop. So starting 2025, I put all the date nights on the calendar. Will things change? We might have a sick kid. Sure, whatever. But I'm already lining up childcare. It's a grandparent or whoever else. And that in and of itself, we're not like, oh crap, how long has it been since we've been on a date? What do you want to do? When do you want to do it? When should, that has taken a lot of the having to figure it out as though we've never done it before out of the equation. This, again, is not something that I expect you to walk away from 1 hour together tonight and be like, oh, yeah, I got it. This is something that I spend hours and months even working through with my clients. It's something that we have touched on the podcast. So there are also free resources to kind of support you in this, but you do absolutely have to have some trellises, if you will, in your life, whether it's a single standard or it's a framework or it's structure or it's a habit. But the goal is to make things easier for you. Now, this one, did I not put a 5 here? This one is my very favorite. There we go. This one is my very, very favorite thing to talk about. And it is a perspective that moves you towards progress. Sorry, I am just making sure I messed up my slides there. Now, here's what I mean. I told this story in boot camp. Most of you guys weren't in Consistency Boot Camp, but I told this story, I think, on Sunday night in Consistency Boot Camp. Anybody watch the show Billions on Showtime? Is it even on anymore? Is it over? Is it done? I think it's done. Anyway, back when Billions was on, one of the earlier seasons, this show Billions, I don't watch a ton of TV, but I really enjoyed it. It's basically about these like big time traders and not traders with a T, but like stock traders and with a D. They were so in the trenches and there was so much pressure on them in their job that they actually had a psychologist or a psychiatrist, her name is Wendy, who helped them stay mentally sharp. And in this one episode, there was this particular team member who was really struggling with the ethics of one of the trades that they were making. And what Wendy said was, in this business, there's going to be multiple versions of the truth. There's going to be many things that are true. Like, this is true, but this is also true. And she said, in this business, you mind the truth that makes you money. And I love this. And I think it's very much not so much about money, but in our own lives, there are going to be many versions of the truth. Like, it is true that you are tired. It is true that in this moment, you're not motivated. It is true in this moment that you just want to sit on the couch and watch TV. It is true that this thing is on sale, and so it's a good deal. All of those things are true. But in the quest for consistency, you need to mind the truth that moves you towards progress. A lot of times, especially for those of us who are all or nothing thinkers, we're like, I'm too tired to work out. So it's either I work out or I don't work out. And since I'm tired, the answer is no. It is true that you are tired, but it is also true that you can work out when you're tired. It is also true that it's not either the 45-minute workout you plan to do or nothing at all. 2 minutes is better than 0 minutes. And so in the quest for consistency, you need to mind the truth that moves you towards progress. You can always be like, oh, I've been so good, I deserve it. Hey, maybe you do deserve it, and maybe you have been good, but that is not a truth that moves you towards progress. That is a truth that moves you away from progress. And the first truth you come to is not the only truth. We need to be in the practice of choosing a perspective that moves you towards progress. I had a really interesting conversation. It had to have been like maybe Sunday or Monday of boot camp week. And somebody commented in the chat something along the lines of, they struggle with food when other people are involved because they feel pressured to eat what other people are eating or eat what other people have made. And I was sharing, actually, the very day before, my family and I had dinner at my mom's house, and she made spaghetti and meatballs. And I had meatballs and veggies and some fruit, but I didn't have any spaghetti. And I said, hey, Mom, my mom was in the chat on the webinar. I was like, Mom, were you like offended? Did that upset you that I didn't have spaghetti, that Chris actually didn't have spaghetti either? And she said, no, but what would have upset me is if you had eaten something you didn't want to eat because you thought that I was going to get upset. Now, how does this have to do with perspective? Sometimes we opt into perspectives that we believe to be true, but whether they are actually true or not, they're just not aligned with progress. We believe that somebody's going to be offended if we don't eat this, or that somebody is going to, it's going to put a spotlight on us, it's going to raise questions, or that if we can't do the thing we plan to do, there's no point in doing anything at all, or this thing that we can do is too small to make a difference. These perspectives might be true, but they're not the only truth. And more importantly than that, they don't move you towards progress. Think about it this way. When you get in your car, you have choices of what to listen to, right? You can listen to talk radio, you can listen to top 40, you can listen to the Weather Channel, right? You can put on a podcast. You choose what you tune into. And that has an influence, right? If I listen to worship music, I'm in a different headspace than if I'm listening to a podcast about a reality TV show where everybody's lying and stealing, being crazy. In the same way, we choose the perspective that we tune into, the mental radio station of thoughts and perspectives. We choose what to tune into. And a lot of us are tuned into things that are not aligned with progress. Like Leslie said, I've played the I deserve it card. Hey, maybe you do. I don't even know what that means. And you probably don't even really dive into what that means. Like, what is it that you're saying you deserve? And why is it that you say you deserve it? And is that really true? But what we know is that it's not serving you, and that we are masterful convincers. Masterful. We are epic salespeople, even if you think like, I'm not good at sales. You sell yourself on every choice you make. If you said, I'm not eating after dinner, and then dinner time comes and you're like, just a little something. It's better than before. Or I'm really hungry and I don't want to go to bed and like wake up and be uncomfortable. So a little something, I'll do better tomorrow. And you know what? If I eat this, then it's out of the way and it doesn't tempt me anymore. Hell of a sales job. Hell of a sales job. But the beautiful thing is, it works both ways, right? We can convince ourselves of anything at any time. We can talk ourselves into the commitments we made, and we can talk ourselves right out of it. Choose a perspective that moves you towards progress. A lot of times people think of it as like positive or negative. Oh, I guess I'm being negative. I need to choose a positive perspective. Or I don't know how to change this perspective because this is just the truth. It's not about if it's true or false. It's not about if it's positive or negative. It is about if it is aligned with helping you be who you want to be and go where you want to go, or if it's aligned with being who you don't want to be, or how you don't want to feel, or where you don't want to go. This is like the epicenter of the work that I do with my clients because it is that impactful. Amanda says, mind blown. Amanda, you have no idea. I'm so glad. And that is like the tippy tip of the iceberg of like lesson after lesson after lesson after lesson of this work with my clients. And honestly, it comes up in probably like, 98% of our coaching conversations, because that is the linchpin. That is the irreplaceable thing. So many people are opting into these perspectives of tomorrow, of delay, of put it off. And that might be very true. It might be true that you can do the workout tomorrow. It might be true that you can pay the bill tomorrow. It might be true that you can clean the kitchen tomorrow, but that is not aligned with where you want to go and who you want to be. Fifth and final, and then I want to take any and all of your questions, okay? Do not rely exclusively on your own thoughts and perspectives. Here's what I mean. I want you to think about it like this. We think tens of thousands of thoughts every single day, and 80+% of them are the same thoughts we had yesterday. So if your thoughts are like a zip code, you are playing in this little sandbox, this little zip code, and you don't really leave the neighborhood, right? You don't really leave the neighborhood. It's the, I don't feel like it. Oh, I'm tired. I wish I could sleep for 30 more minutes. I hate my job. Oh, she's annoying. I hate that guy, right? I'm so tired again and again and again and again. I don't feel like it. I don't want to. I need a treat. I deserve it. You're just recycling and playing in this tiny little region. And if you think the way you've always thought, you're going to get what you've always got. And we can, on our own, bump out the edges and start to think differently. And that perspective work is a big part of it. But one of the ways we can fast track this work and really make a meaningful difference is stop trying to figure it all out in your own head with your own reasoning, because your own reasoning is what got you here in the first place. Ask other people, hey, how do you see this? How do you think I should see this? What other perspectives are there? And start to, by allowing other people in to your thoughts, bump out the edges of those perspectives. When I'm with my clients, one of the things we talk about a lot is my husband's shorts. It happens. In fact, I may have used the term freeballing on a webinar a couple nights ago, and it got a bunch of emails about that. But the reason that we talk about it a lot is because it is an example of the constant opportunity for practice. Our bedroom is not big. Mine and my husband's bedroom is not that big. And my husband almost always takes his shorts off and leaves them at the foot of the bed when the hamper is literally like 2.5 feet from there. And many, many times my perspective is, are you effing kidding me? Why is it so hard to just pick them up and put them in the hamper? Is that true? Yeah. Is that valid? Yeah. Is that fair? Sure. Does that work for me? No, because if I opt into that perspective, I'm crabby and irritated and annoyed. And quite frankly, I don't want to be crabby and irritated and annoyed. And if I think about where's the bar for like what pisses me off, if the bar is down here with shorts on the floor, I am going to be pissed off all day, every day. And I don't want to be like that. And so that is an opportunity where I get to constantly practice a perspective that does not make me mad. How can I see this so that I'm not so upset? And a lot of times that feels hard to do. And this is why it's so powerful to invite in other perspectives, whether that is my mom or my mother-in-law or a girlfriend or the Bible or whatever it is, a coach, a mentor, anything. We have to get out of the confines of our most familiar thoughts. Now, this got misaligned, but option one, option two. Option one is you do this work yourself, and you can. I want you to know that. You can dig in and you can go back through this and you can think about it and you can wrestle with it and you can start to take smaller steps and you can start to challenge the perspectives that you're using to talk yourself into excuses, to talk yourself out of commitment. I want you to know that even if you doubt yourself, you can do it on your own. And then there's others of you who are like, yeah, I could, or maybe I couldn't, or I don't feel confident that I could, and you want support. All right. I don't think it's wrong one way or another. I really don't think that it is wrong to DIY it or to have support. In fact, I joke that this is the Elizabeth Benton drinking game, that if there was such a thing, it would be on the phrase, successful people ask for help, right? I really believe that one of the ways to struggle less and for less often is to ask for help. And so in my business, I know I can figure it out on my own. Whatever problem I run into, I can read a book, I can Google it, I can go to ChatGPT, I can just think through it, I can reflect on my experiences. I know I can figure it out myself. But maybe that'll take 3 months. And if I ask for help, maybe it'll take 3 hours, right? Maybe it'll take 3 weeks. One of the ways that I can expedite my struggles in any area is by asking for help. This is the same thing in my marriage. When I am at a sticking point in my marriage is hard, especially when you're married to your polar opposite, and I am in every way. Can we figure it out on our own? Sure. Can we figure it out faster and more easily and with less fighting and maybe even more fun if we ask for help? Yeah. So I'm a big fan of asking for help. Now, let me tell you the framework that I use to make these kinds of decisions in terms of like, do I want somebody to help me or do I want to do it on my own? When money is involved, here's how I make the decision. Let's say it's something simple like reading a book. Do I really want to read this book? Like, do I need another book? Do I want to spend $27 on a book? Do I believe that I could get an idea or a tool that is worth $27 to me? And if the answer is yes, then it's kind of a no-brainer. If a coach is offering me something that is $1,000, what do I think is the likelihood that the problem I'm trying to solve, they can help me solve, and is that worth $1,000 to me, right? So when I have bought programs before, I've asked myself questions like, hey, if I could automate my marketing and have it be twice as effective as it is now, what would that be worth to me? And as long as what they're offering isn't more than that, then it's kind of a no-brainer, right? So that's the framework that I use. I'm not saying it's the framework that you use, but that might help you in considering, do you want to work with me? Do you not want to work with me? And I also want to say, I have a gift that I want to give you guys if you do decide to work with me this evening. So hang tight if you're kind of thinking about it, because I don't want you to miss that part. And if you're like, nah, I just came to hear you talk, then you can bounce and there's no pressure, and just, I love you and I hope you'll stay in touch and whatever. Okay, so the consistency course works like this. One of my favorite parts of it is that I do weekly check-ins with my clients, because I've been a part of a lot of programs, and I'll be honest, sometimes I feel like I've fallen through the cracks. And because I'm an introvert, believe it or not, I'm a major introvert. Like, I just sort of disappear and nobody ever knows. And so I don't do the work. And then I'm like, well, this sucked. And so that's why I do check-ins every single week. I rarely see this in programs. And if I do, the check-ins might be like once a month. I do this every single week. And what that looks like is every Friday, I put forth a series of questions. They're similar but different every single week, because I don't want you just like copy pasting. And then every Monday, I go through every single one. Absolutely every single one, which is why Mondays are dedicated to clients. There's also unlimited direct messaging with me. I've never seen that anywhere. Unlimited direct messaging with me inside the consistency course. That is not like on some discussion board where everybody can see it. We do have a discussion board, but you can message me. And not only can you, my clients will tell you this. Every single time they hear from me, I'm like, hey, message me. It's not discouraged, quite the opposite. I encourage it, and I encourage it adamantly, because I believe successful people ask for help. I want to hear from you. It is not in any way annoying. It's not like, oh God, her again. I'm like, oh yes, I love it. Because here's the deal. The more in communication and connected you are, the better your results are. So unlimited direct messaging with me. The only caveat there is I'm not in the community as much on the weekends. So we'll say Monday through Friday. If you message me on a Friday afternoon, you might not hear from me until Monday, but Monday through Friday, unlimited direct messaging with me. I think those two things in and of themselves kind of makes it a no-brainer. We have 2 live calls per month. Those are as a group. We also, in fact, this Saturday, we have our next small group orientation. So if you're new or new-ish and there's no cutoff, you can join these whenever, just to kind of connect in a small group, chit chat, get to know each other, talk about what's going on and what you're struggling with. Let me help. We do those orientations at least once a month. There's also a private daily podcast. So the only people that see that are folks who are in the consistency course. And take a sip of my tea. And that is exclusively on the topic of implementation, because we don't need to know more. We need to do more with what we know. So these are Monday through Friday, super short episodes, just a couple of minutes, but they are hardline focused on being in action and taking action, doing something with what you know. And then, of course, I mean, this is really like, it should be the most emphasized thing, but I get more excited about the unlimited direct messaging and the check-ins and the, calls and stuff. But we also, of course, have a curriculum. Like, we talked a little bit about vision today in terms of perspective and how you choose to see things. Like, that is the first bucket of content, and it's video, action step, graphic that you can save so you're reminded very regularly. This is just an example of what I mean when I say direct messaging. And it says that these audios are 0 minutes long, but that's not true. It's a private direct. It's not email. It's right in our course platform, because I want you in there regularly. I can direct message you. You can direct message me, and I want you to. Okay, let's talk about a bonus for being here today. First of all, there's 2 options. You can pay monthly, and you can see it up on the screen here. If you click join now, you can see what the options are. So you can pay monthly, which is $97 a month, or you can save massively with an annual subscription that you can cancel anytime, and you can get $100 off that annual subscription, which puts you at around 3 months free with that annual subscription with the code ASK. Now, hear me, I get emails about this every single time, so I really want to emphasize this. For that code ASK to work, you have to select the annual option. If you are selecting the monthly option and you try that code ASK, it's not going to work. Are we cool on that? Are we good? Do you hear me on that? That code ASK, you have to select the annual option for that discount code to ask. But I want to offer weekly live small groups for your first month. In addition to the orientations, I want to do something every single week where we're like connecting, we're on video, we're talking, it's real. You get time, I get time with you. And for the first 50 people, I also want to send you a special gift in the mail. So I typically don't ask for mailing address, but I will because I want to send something cool in the mail for the first 50 of you guys. So what I'm offering for you guys is, in addition to unlimited messaging, in addition to the weekly check-ins, in addition to the monthly orientations and the twice monthly calls, I want to connect more personally so I can get to know you a little bit. Offer you $100 off if you're going to do that annual, which gives you just over, I think, 3 months free. And then I'm going to send something special in the mail to those of you that are the first 50. And I will say this, that code ASK expires tomorrow night. Okay. So that $100 discount is only good until tomorrow night. But I really love the framework of like, hey, $97 a month if I wanted to do monthly, or you can basically get 3 months free if you do the annual. And I really like the value play there personally for me. I know not everybody makes decisions that way. What do I think that I could get a benefit that is worth $97 working with Elizabeth for 1 month? Right? Do I think that I could benefit my life and my goals in a way that is worth $97 to me after 30 days? Do you feel that way? And if you don't, then it's an absolute no for you, right? But that's how I like to think about it and make those decisions. Okay, what I want to do now, I can tell you guys more about the consistency course, but what I want to do more is jump over and see if there are questions. Typically, the chat is blowing up with questions, but I haven't seen a ton of questions, which is totally fine. But if you have questions, let's do that. I'm not going anywhere until questions are answered. So if you have questions about the consistency course, if you have questions about anything we've talked about tonight, drop it in the chat. You can put it in the Q&A or you can put it in the chat. I have both pulled up. But about anything we talked about, the application of anything we talked about, any questions about the consistency course, I'm trying to think about consistency course questions I got from boot campers that I can share with you. I know one person wanted to make sure that the unlimited direct messaging truly was private. It absolutely is. Nobody sees my messages except for me. So, you know, for me, I'm an introvert. I don't like other people knowing my business and all that kind of stuff, which seems weird because I just talked about my husband's shorts on the floor. But I really am an introvert. Any other questions? Like I said, the discount code, you have to select the annual option. That $100 off does not apply to the monthly option. You can cancel anytime, but I like people to mentally commit to a few months because this doesn't happen fast. Amanda says, will you send us a follow-up email on this if you want to sleep on it? Absolutely. Yeah, my goal is to get that out tonight, but this platform, this Webinar Jam platform, is a little bit newer to me. I've used it a handful of times, so I just have to make sure I can figure out the email follow-up piece of it, but that is absolutely my intent. And Amanda, if you have questions tomorrow, you can email me. Janet says, can you clarify the offer? 1 month is 97, code ask equals 100. Isn't that about 1 month free? Good question, except that the annual is already discounted. So if it was $97 a month times 12, that's like just shy of $1,200 for annual, but annual isn't $1,200. Annual is $997. So with the code, annual becomes $897, which is about 3 months free compared to the monthly option. Does that make sense, Janet? So yeah, you just are saving essentially 3 months when you do the annual option with that discount code. But even if it's after the discount code expires, you're still getting a couple months free on the annual. But great question. I can see how that math is confusing. If you click through the link that's up on the screen, you should see it. Yeah, so that's how that works. All right, yeah, $75 a month with that math. Thanks, Amanda, for the help. Other questions from you guys. I don't want to keep anybody here if there aren't questions, but I'm more than happy to elaborate on anything we talked about tonight, answer anything about the consistency course or working with me or doubts or reservations or fears that you have about it, or we can just all go to bed and that's fine too, because you can always email me. That ask discount code, like I said, will just expire tomorrow night. So Tuesday night, around midnight Eastern time is when that discount code will expire. And the first 50 that sign up will get a cool gift in the mail that I'm very excited about. And And I love the idea of first month doing weekly small groups, because here's what I believe. If you make a connection, like a real personal connection, whether it's with me or it's with me and other people in the group, that will do amazing things for your consistency. Truly, truly. Oh, there's a question over here in the Q&A. If I know now what I want and how I want to get there, can you talk about what you do when you get there? What do you mean, when you get to your goal, or when you get to the awareness of how you want to get there? Can you clarify? And I'd be happy to. Robin says, is there an official start date to the course? Great question, Robin. Immediately. As soon as you sign up, you get immediate access. So you can start right away. Jen had the same question. Certain start date as soon as you sign up. Will this subscription get help with clarification on setting up your personal trellis? Absolutely. Yes, 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 yes. Not only in the curriculum and the videos, but also because of unlimited direct messaging. So if you've got questions on it, I want to hear from you. The weekly check-ins, you're struggling, we need to fine tune and adjust. We'll do that with the check-ins, but you can also message me anytime. Then we have those coaching calls. Does the first 50 apply to either monthly or annually? Both, like first 50 people to join no matter how they play. When you get to your goal, you stay there, right? And then so it looks like what needs to change so that I maintain this, or what is a new goal or next goal that I have. And so for some people, it's going to be setting a new goal. And for other people, it's going to be, how do I sustain this? Stephanie says, signed up. Thank you. Amazing. Jen says, are the weekly check-ins personal or group? Both. So here's how it works. The questions are for you personal. I review your, Jen, individual responses, and then I respond in a combination of ways. About 50% week by week, I send direct messages, maybe because it's a personal topic. Maybe it's because I want more information and I want to continue the dialogue. Like, hey, did you think about this? Or tell me more about what you mean here. And then I also, on top of that, record a video that goes up every Monday afternoon that is the more like global approach. Like, here are, 12 things that came in from the group this week, and let's coach through each one. So it's always a combination of direct messages. Like today when I did it, I probably sent 50 direct messages to people. And then there was probably like 30% of respondents that I addressed in the videos, because they were things that like everybody can really, really benefit from. So both. But in addition to that, if you ever felt like, oh man, I wanted to hear from you directly, you can either put that in your check-in, you can message me directly, and that channel is always open. Sandra says, not a question, but a comment. I've been part of the consistency course and Elizabeth is so committed to us. Oh, thank you, Sandra. Feels like a personal coach. This is an unbelievable value. I actually agree with you. It's dramatically underpriced. And I get told that constantly. How does this work with current members whose annual membership expires in a couple of months? Shoot me an email, Sandra, because I've sent out a handful of emails around new rates for you guys. So we can talk about that based on where you're at and your specifics, okay? You can message me in Circle, you can shoot me an email. Janet says, for those that want it, will you coach individuals from a biblical perspective? I'm always open to sharing my faith and my perspective. The work that I do every day is very much influenced by my perspective. But, I think a lot of that depends on what you mean, a biblical perspective. Like, I'm not a theologian, I'm not a preacher, but I am a Christian. And that is a massive part of my life. And that is the foundation of my perspective in my marriage and as a parent and with money and with health. So I bring that naturally, but like, am I a biblical scholar? No, I am not. No, I am not. All right. It looks like those are the only questions. I think I've addressed everything. Hey, if I missed something, please know I did not intentionally skip any of these questions. I once did a webinar where somebody emailed me the next day and was like, you answered everybody but me. I don't know what I did wrong. And I was like, oh, just genuinely a mistake. So sometimes it's just easy to miss things, and I never intend to, but you can always email me and let me know. And I'm happy to weigh in on it. But it looks like that is all the questions that we have. If you think of something in an hour or a day or a week, let me know. I am real and here and happy to help, and nobody sees my emails except for me. So if you email me, I will reply. Nobody does that for me or even with me. So Thank you so much for being here. I genuinely hope we get the opportunity to work together in the consistency course. That code ASK on the annual subscription works until tomorrow night. So if you have any questions after the fact, shoot me an email, let me know, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a great night, and thanks so much for being here.